Thank you. Kia ora. Welcome to the Strategy and Policy meeting of the 16th of October. Hard to believe that it's October. Tūtaua mai i runga, tūtaua mai i raro, tūtaua mai i roto, tūtaua mai i waho. Kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te kātua, hone hui tae. Apologies, we have an apology from Councillor Cook, who's away on council business. Someone like to move that, please. Is there any others? Chairman Hall, seconded.
Yeah.
Councillor Gibson, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried, thank you. Sorry, just looking at the pages. And any declarations of interest? Item 4 is public forum petitions and deputations. We don't have any today. It's a bit of a shame. Item 5, confirmation of minutes of the 12th of September.
I'll move.
Councillor Roy.
I'll see.
Seconded. Councillor Foam, sorry. Any discussion on those? Great, I'll pop that in. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. Any notification of extraordinary items? No questions were circulated to me prior, so we'll take that as none. And Chairman and Councillors' reports. I don't have anything at this point. Any councillors got anything to report verbally? We've been busy doing other things. Thank you. Righto, so that takes us to item 9.1, the revised regional climate change strategy. Marcus is going to step in for Anka because she's unwell, supported by Councillor Morrison, I'm assuming. Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks very much. This report seeks the Policy Strategy Committee adopt the regional climate change strategy, which is worked through the process. So it's been an interagency approach with 4 councils and Te Amarama to get to this stage, and we've also been through quite a thorough public consultation process too. That was coincided with the long-term plan process. Hearing panel heard or considered 60 submissions as part of that process. A number of the submissions talked about the level of support for progressing a collaborative approach to climate change, and particularly the strategy. There was support and opposition, but generally overall support with the collaborative approach and the principles in the strategy. More consideration for equity was requested by the submitters. In the aspirations, submitters requested some opposition to Southland becoming net zero by 2050 and some suggestions for further refinements. There was some concerns around the cost associated with progressing forward climate change work to ratepayers, and of the other matters raised, generally a precautionary approach, need for transparency in consideration of nature-based solutions, gravel management and accuracy of regional emissions framework. So the strategy has been passed Environment Southland's Climate Change Subcommittee on the 14th of August and endorsed, but also been passed Gore District Council, Te Amarama Board on 2 occasions, the Coburg City Council and Southland District Council all adopting the strategy. It's now Environment Southland's turn to adopt the strategy. But I guess we've got the chair of the climate change working group with us, Councillor Morrison, and Councillor Morrison, if he's got any other comments to add into the process, or where we're at in terms of the process.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you. Perhaps just to observe that this is a journey that's involved all 4 councils along with Te Amarama. And so it's been a journey that to date has been a very deliberate journey. I say deliberate because that's probably suggesting it's not been a fast journey. That it's important that I think all of the parties have seen the need to bring everyone on the journey and not to push too fast if it's going to risk losing or leaving someone behind or losing commitment. And I think it reflects also that this is part of responding to a long-term challenge. We're not going to be fixing climate change or adapting to climate change overnight. This is going to pervade so many aspects of what we do in the future. So moving deliberately and getting this right and bringing people opportunities is a really important part of it. What was interesting when I workshopped or spoke to each council and Te Ao Marama as they considered the adoption of this strategy was reinforcing to the council and elected members around each of the tables that this is not the work of the climate change working group, it's our work. It's the work of all of us. All of the councils are equal partners and have a say in this. And so when people were at times challenging us, going, well, it's not us, it's the collective us, all of Southland. So I think that was really important to remind people that this is not an isolated effort, that all councils are continuing to contribute to it. It was interesting to note that in Invercargill City Council, it was adopted unanimously at that council meeting. South and District Council had one councillor abstain or vote against it. And Gore District Council, I was a little surprised they had 3 who voted against it. They were first off the mark. And the names of those who voted against it, in each case, are recorded in the minutes of those particular meetings for those councils. But no, I really endorse that council adopt this at this point, and it sets the foundation for the subsequent framework for action, which will start to look at the specific actions on mitigation, adaptation, community engagement and governance moving forward.
Councillor, I have a question for you. Don't want to know names at all, but I'm just wondering what the general tenor of the objections or the firstly, whether it was abstentions or against, and if so, what the general tenor of those, was it philosophical or was it practical or?
Yeah, so they didn't abstain, they were voted against it in each case. I'd have to say I struggled to articulate why. It wasn't evident or it wasn't coherent arguments made evident to me in those meetings as to why an individual councillor might vote against it.
So there's nothing that we could have done differently necessarily about the process that would have made it different.
No, I think, as I say, we've worked deliberately, and I'm being reassured by the public consultation process. I mean, technically, we didn't need to do that, but it was felt that it was the right thing to do, and that made a positive difference, I think. A more robust strategy has emerged. So, yeah.
That's right. Councillor Guyton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question either to Phil or Marcus about the use of the employment of the precautionary principle and the work that you've done. Is that defined somewhere, and are we able to access what you mean by that rather than just the term? There must be a definition with parameters and so on that we are working to.
Yeah, I don't think at any stage we've seen a need around the table with the 5 agencies talking about it to turn to a formal definition of it. I think that there's a collective understanding that, the precautionary principle means we are dealing with uncertainty. And because there is a high level of uncertainty to, proceed on the basis that there are unknown unknowns that we may yet encounter, and we need to factor that flexibility and agility into our thinking for the future. But we haven't certainly had to deploy a formal definition of the term precautionary principle to date during any of our conversations in the working group.
I feel that it would be useful to have that recorded somewhere, what we mean by that, so it can be accessed, because I know that that's one point that when the pressure comes on, people might challenge. Well, I feel that people might challenge that principle, because it requires investing, as you say, into things that you cannot know. And some folk that doesn't sit easy with them. So I'd feel more comfortable sitting somewhere that we could refer to.
Maybe that's something our own climate change subcommittee could suggest be brought forward to the climate change working group.
Right.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks very much. So you were there, Phil, when all the other councils discuss the issue. We have an advantage because we've been talking about this and socialising these issues for about 5 years within this council, setting up this regional group. Were you quite impressed with the level or not impressed with the level of knowledge? Of course, there's two aspects. There's the climate change aspects and then there's working together. So any commentary on when you walk through the door of people's willingness to say, yes, this is the way forward?
I'll make, if I may, some broad observations. First of all, we had the benefit of climate change survey, perception survey across the region. There was 505 people responded to that late last year, which suggests that we're tracking about 13% of our community that would seem not supportive of climate action. And so there's that subset, a minority who don't believe that it's warranted, that maybe question anthropogenic climate change or the cause of climate change. In some respects, the volatile weather we've experienced in the last 3 or 4 years helps people understand that regardless of the potential attribution of climate change, there is a level of volatility in our climate experiences, and that we need to be able to respond to that as communities and to keep people safe and to allow industry to continue with what it's doing. So I think that climate volatility has helped people understand the need for a collective response, and that whatever the cause is, our dollar will go further if we work together and we understand the risks together and respond together. Those would probably be the broad observations. I would respond to that question at this stage.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Rodway.
Oh, thank you. Just some observations, Madam Chair. I think it must be around about 2020, 21 maybe, when Robert advocated for us to declare a climate emergency. And I don't think that was successful, if I recall rightly. Although some of the councils around the country did do that. So I think we've come from there. We've come quite a long way. This is certainly not so alarmist. I mean, as Phil says, people are realising that we do have to do something about it, certainly from an adaptation point of view, to protect ourselves from extreme weather events, and probably there's a support for that in the community. There's probably less support for us to actually do things to reduce our impact on climate change by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. There's a fair bit of scepticism out there that, what individuals can do isn't much use. What's happening in China, Russia, and Palestine is, means that what we do has no impact. But of course it does, and we all have to do something. So I think that part of it is less well accepted by the community. But I would like to compliment Phil on his chairmanship in this role. Some of us think that it's going a little bit slow, as he alluded to, but we do understand it's very important to get everybody involved. And I think it's a really good example of councils working together. And my experience on the group is that there's a very positive way of thinking to do this. And I'd like to thank, in particular, the staff. Ninki has been working tirelessly on this, and the staff on the other councils as well have been very supportive. So it's a very good example of a process in motion. And now that, as Phil says, we get on to recommending some steps that we can take. The carbon budgets that every council is doing, so we'll be able to look at ways to reduce our carbon footprint in the years to come. So it's a very good foundation for all of that stuff. So well done, Phil, and the staff involved in particular. And I certainly commend us to adopt this, to be consistent with the other councils, and so that we can go forward.
Thanks, Councillor. Stuart.
I'll just comment on that. Steve was commentary about public forum or public community forum, and so I'm quite keen that we get there ASAP to bring on board the wider public to hopefully they can support the local authorities and such like to and encourage them to get on board. So I just think it's really important that we bring on that community voice as well. And, might call peer pressure might come on to their local councillors and such like to maybe move in the right direction. I don't know if anyone watched the report on the yacht in the Mediterranean last night, the unsinkable yacht that got sunk because of weather bomb. That's an unusual weather bomb that they're pointing at climate change and predicting that you expect to see a whole lot more of this sort of stuff coming at you. So, you know, here we have what they described as absolutely unsinkable. And it's wrong. And you know, people need to take notice of what's going on around in the wider picture, because we're not going to be able to dodge it, and we're not going to wait till we get slapped around the ears before we start to do anything about it. So thanks for that report. It was really good reading, and appreciate it together.
Chairman Horrell?
Yes, Madam Chair, I was on a Zoom call with the Regional Secretary yesterday, looking at the submission that we've put into the Select Committee on Climate Change. Very comprehensive report. I'm not sure it's quite ready for release just yet, but one of the things that concerned me was appears to be a reasonably big lack of commitment from central government to support. They haven't made final decisions yet. They identified the issues are all identified very well, but when it comes to managed retreat type discussions, there will be ongoing debate there. But once it's ready to release, I'll make sure it's circulated. I've given my hard copy to Phil just to have a look at it in the meantime. But so this is happening all around the countryside, and there's some learnings in parts of the North Island, especially people who are behind flood banks, and how do you actually have a fair system for protection, managed retreats. The cost for some small communities without help is massive. So there's some real challenges ahead, but I think this report is going to be useful. The committee is striving to get a bipartisan position. They haven't quite got there yet, but I think that's pretty important going forward, that you actually have Parliament as a whole actually committed to a course of action.
Thanks, Chairman. That'll be interesting to see where we stand. Did you want to say something else?
I was going to say I'd be happy to move the motion in this case.
Can I just ask you very quickly then, because there are 4 recommendations, and I just want to make sure that councillors are aware that number 2 is there have been changes to the original document that we looked at. So just if there's any red flags in there that you think we might have missed. I don't think there are, because the subcommittee have discussed it at length.
Yeah, it was endorsed by, I think, the council for the public ahead of the consultation process in February. And that enabled us to take it to the public consultation process. And so any changes have been triggered by feedback that we got from the public. And I did observe in that process that we got submissions from individuals and from organisations. All of the organisations who submitted were positive in support. Interesting. And then it was where individuals submitted, there was mixed. Some against, some for the strategy that's going forward. So that was quite an interesting split.
Yes. Councillor McFarlane, are you seconding or ask a question?
I can, but I was just going to make a comment in regards to, there was a question about why some councillors not vote for it, and I just quickly got on the GDC minutes to see, and I mean, one was purely, well, this is going to cost money. The ratepayers can't afford to, from a point of the rates, the strategy will cost money. One's obviously indicating we can't rely on our electricity for everything but have diversification, and the other one didn't even make a comment. So, but it would be quite good, just, I mean, I've just satisfied my curiosity whether we can get some of the minutes that if there were a few people, just to understand why people vote against it. But that's public information. So, but I'm happy to
Thank you. So we have a mover on councillor Morrison and seconded by councillor McPhail for the 4 recommendations. Okay. Anything else? Great. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Great work, team. It's been amazing. Look forward to the next steps. The next even steeper steps. All right, 9.2 is the mineral potential of New Zealand and draft critical minerals list, which gave me conniptions just by reading it, let alone reading the title, let alone reading the report. What the heck? Thanks, Marcus. Aileen Charter, welcome.
Kia ora koutou. So this report outlines the recent changes that have been made relating to the mineral extraction policy, national policy. So there are 4 main pieces to the package that the central government is putting out. So the stock take of minerals and the mineral potential of New Zealand in the critical minerals list, and the minerals strategy to 2040 in amendments to the Mining Act. And in August, the stocktake of mineral potential of New Zealand report was released, and this was supplemented by the release of the draft critical minerals list in September. The final list is currently being developed, and they will feed into the development of the National Minerals Strategy to 2040. So in our report, we have outlined, provided an overview of the local mineral extraction industry, which I hope was helpful. And we have also summarized the content of the stocktake report, as well as providing some information about the draft. Of particular interest to us was the overlap between those 2 lists. Which of the minerals that are identified as being present in Southland have been identified as being critical, because that's where attention is going to be, and potentially the government will provide some mechanisms to encourage extraction of those minerals in the future. And in the list were silicon, platinum, group metals, rare earth elements, nickel, magnesium, zirconium, as well as aggregate and sand. So those are minerals that may be of particular interest to future developers and businesses. And we are keeping a close watch because it's currently a draft list. And also, I would like to note that future trajectory for the industry is uncertain at the moment, because it not only depends on the national policy, but how that will pan out will be significantly impacted by the market conditions, as well as the various technologies that may become available. So this is an area we are watching closely, but we will bring back any notable updates in the future in case it grows to be an industry that affects our regional economy and social dynamics significantly. So it's we're keeping a watch on it. And also wanted to note that the Crown's Minerals Act is being amended at the moment, and there has been a consultation a few weeks ago, and it was this initiative brings in some significant changes, including the lifting of the ban on oil and gas extraction, and we were provided with a very short time frame of a week, so we unfortunately weren't able to compile our solution due to the time frame. Yeah, but again, we're keeping a watch on this, and we'll be on this. We're expecting to finalize this matter before the end of this year.
Thanks, Shannon. It's quite disturbing. Councillor Guyton, thank you.
It's more than quite disturbing. My question is, if Environment Southland were unable to submit because of the ridiculously tiny time frame that was allowed, what's the situation with, do you know what the situation is with other councils around the country, and did they find themselves in the same position?
I actually had the same question myself, but I didn't get to explore it further.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, I think the other councils are in a similar position as we are. It's not sufficient time to work up a submission and pass it through councillors for approval.
Just sounds scandalous to me.
And Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I think we need to pay attention to couple of things around gravel and sand too. I know there's been moves around the country to protect that resource, especially up and around Auckland, in the harbours there of extracting sand for the infrastructure drive. So we just need to just really keep a good eye on that, of what's being done in the background. It could have a big effect on their rivers and river management.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart, and then Councillor Pemberton.
I think there's opportunity for this council and perhaps others to get the amount of houses to be probably at this point with that short time frame in the opportunity, I guess, of being able to comment because as has been said, it's just
Yeah.
it's scandalous actually. It really is. I mean, it's not giving anyone an opportunity to take this. Love it or like, like it or love it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Is that the general feeling of the room, that we should write to the minister and express our displeasure at the time frame, and then perhaps get in a wee bit of, this is what we'd have said if you'd given us time?
Well, you just encourage them to do the same, mate. Yeah, if you don't.
Yeah, I'll support that.
Yeah, speak up.
Do you have capacity to do that, staff? That's the next question.
We will make capacity.
Fantastic. So that would be the action, please, for a letter to go to the relevant minister or ministers. Expressing our displeasure, and maybe, stick in a wee point that we might have made, that'd be good. Thanks, Mr. Paul, thank you. Mr. Pemberton, Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, support that. This is the first time we've had this opportunity arise. Seems to be evolving. Probably just a comment, this really points towards getting our coastal marine plan nice and tidy. We talked about agriculture last week and how that may work, and we're obviously going to see some conflicting expectations between various parties on how may our waters be engaged with, so it probably just underlines the importance of getting this dialed in nice and tight.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you, Councillor. I'd just like to make one point that there's a group called the Joint Ore Reserves Committee, or JORC, which I just think is mildly amusing. But anyway, I don't want to be a member of the JORC group. Thank you. Sounds like it should be in the Lord of the Rings or something. So, anybody like to move that recommendation, please? Oh, did you have a question, Councillor?
Well, yeah, I think we don't seem to be completely negative. That might be a bit of a surprise to some of you coming to me, but if you read through the report on the uses of various minerals and things, they are essential for our modern society. So, provided they can be extracted in a way that doesn't have significant adverse effects, then I think we'd all probably agree that there is a role for mineral extraction, provided it's done properly.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, I just want to support that. I think that is well said, but also extraction is about profit too. So let's not think that everything's going to be opened up. There's going to be mining pits all around South.
Thank you. Somebody like to, sorry, Councillor Horrell, did you want to speak?
Yes, just sort of supporting Morris over there. We've talked about silicon for years, and I see in this report it actually mentions lithium. And so I think our issue is more that it's environmentally friendly and safeguards are put in place rather than being totally against anything, because going forward that some of the places lithium comes from is not a great story either. So I think we need to be reasonably open-minded. I think a lot of things are happening. The submission period is short for everything from the fast track legislation, and we can make the points we have about that. But apart from that, I think receiving is a good idea.
Through you, Chair, I was just going to note the report refers to the 6th of October announcement around the first tranche of decisions on the fast track approvals, which didn't contain any mining applications. However, the full list of applications that was released just over the last few days does include some mining applications for this region.
Interesting.
Through you, Madam Chair, just one quick point, picking up on the comments around the influence of mineral extraction. Under that current proposal, minerals need to get resource consents through the Resource Management Act. So when you're looking at, I guess, this change through the legislative process here, in addition to wider regulatory changes or decision-making changes going through the future ability to do mining in a sustainable way, may be looked at differently as opposed to an effects-based approach. It's more like a commercial benefit approach. So there's nuances around competing with the legislation and how that framework for extractive activities may look in the future, which may not be the same as what we're currently working under.
Great, thank you. Right, we've got somebody to move that recommendation, please, and that action for attention. Thank you. Somebody, anybody? Thank you, Councillor Morrison.
Happy to see you.
Seconded, Chairman Horrell. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. 9.3, Government Legislation and Policy Monitor. It's quite upsetting that that's probably the most pages within our agenda today, that report. But Shana, I'll let you lead us in and then we can discuss.
Thank you very much. So following on the same topic of fast track, so to provide more information that on the 7th of October, the government released a list of 140 projects to be included in the schedule, the fast track approvals and three of the 4 projects are agriculture related, and one is from the Ulukago City Council for alternative water supply. And as Rachel mentioned, 10 of the 14 projects that came from Southland did not make it to the list. We don't have try to investigate with a view to engaging with potential applicants in the respective applications. There might be an engagement to obtain more information on potential applications that may come in the future. And relating to the broader resource management reform, the Select Committee came back with a report on the Resource Management Amendment Bill number 1 on the 1st of October. So this bill may be finalized in the near future, in the next few weeks, in this month or so. And also the Minister has released more details around the shape of the replacement act of the Resource Management Act. This is a longer term initiative with consultation expected to happen in the second half of next year. And the Replacement Act is expected to be in place by 2026. And as has been announced before, a strong focus will be on embedding property rights, and it will be focused on boosting housing infrastructure in the private sector activities while providing protection for the environment and other matters. And I wanted to also touch on the fact that the Treaty Principles Bill is likely to be released in November, which is not too far away. So it would be helpful if staff can get a gauge on the level of interest in putting together a submission to provide our input to the government when that time comes around. And we just wanted to note that for some reason the attachment, the monitor that was attached to the agenda is missing a few details that we have added in the last minute. So the staff may circulate the latest version to you following this meeting.
Thank you. Questions, anybody? I've got Councillor Guyton at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, two things. One is on the treaty bill. I certainly support us doing work and canvassing councillors particularly about what our thoughts are about that, and getting in early, as you say, it's a very good point. The second thing I wondered is the other submissions to the fast track bill from Southland that weren't accepted. Are you able to access those anyway without going to the particular submitters? Can you just OIA them, or are they sitting there available for you to view?
Through you, Madam Chair, I have got a printout copy of all of the 15 that were applied for. So there's 15 applied for in Southland and 4 approved, so it would.
Thank you.
So yeah, it is available. So there's a brief summary of those ones there. Of the 15 projects that were applied for, 8 of them were aquaculture related. Only 3 aquaculture ones were approved. There's certainly other proposals in there too, data grid and wind farms as well. So here's a list circulated of all the projects. The page as well.
I need stronger glasses.
Presumably the Southland Development agencies will be also looking at those applications with an eye to supporting whatever they might be.
Just quick to clarify, that was one mining application, sorry, for the region line. This was one further north. It's a gold mining one.
Thanks for that, Marcus. That's quite helpful. Chairman Horrell and then Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The NES for commercial forestry, interested in the timeframes, I'm quite surprised at the stance they're taking here, because on the campaign trail there was a lot of talk about giving local communities more say by most parties, and we may want to be submitting or lobbying early on that one, because it's not the same, and I would have thought that it would be good to have national direction with regional flavour, and this appears to cut that out. And we know from past experience with a whole lot of things that there'll always be problems if you do that. And the NES we've lobbied for quite some time that needs strengthened, and that's fine. But the tenor of this is saying that no regional flavour is quite concerning.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just got a comment to the question. The question first, talking about that forestry, it's been well signalled by ministers about the constriction around land use and forestry on land classes. Have you seen that? Is that on its way before Christmas?
Madam Chair, there are changes coming to the national policy statement for highly productive land. They haven't signalled, but there was some signalling that they were going to try and remove class 3 land, but they're looking to try and strengthen or enable urban growth into highly productive land as an alternative. So they're still finalising their policy position on how they're going to adjust that. I haven't seen anything more coming around the land and plantation forestry, how that will be reconciled at this stage, but it is still coming.
And just want to make a bit of a general comment, if I could. Madam Chair, you said right at the outset of this about the activity and the amount of work. It goes against what most people sort of think, that that's not the case. And maybe we should be communicating it speaks to our responses and speaks to our budgets and speaks to our work that we have to undertake when we have central government as busy as this. So I'm just trying to talk about the perception out there that this is not the case, but what we're seeing on the ground, that this is the case with our activity, the levels of our activity in response. So maybe we should think about as a council trying to communicate that more widely within the region.
The fact that there are 45 headings in this paper indicates we've got quite a lot of work on. And that brings me to me. And then, Councillor Rodway, you can go first.
Oh, I think you.
No, Chair can go last. That's how it works.
Three things. First on page 69, we had a discussion about offshore renewable energy generation. So I appreciate there's not much detail there. Is there any more detail about this? Did I see some of these ones that were turned down where, there were seven farms in the ocean, weren't they? There was one wind farm, but that was on land. Sure, family asset. So is there any information about what could happen regarding offshore? I imagine there's to be wind turbines offshore and is there anything at all, or is it just at this stage?
Through you, Madam Chair, there is a proposal to establish some national direction on offshore wind farms. At the stage of this, the proposal going through, but they haven't announced a position on when or how far away. There is a national direction package signalled in early 2025 around those different chunks of national direction and piecemealing them up around infrastructure. So I anticipate it'll either be in the coastal chapter of that work or the infrastructure chapter. Signalling is that they are keen for renewables and enabling infrastructure and coastal marine space too through the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement Review and renewable energy generation.
So that's something we'll need to consider for our coastal plan review, I suppose.
Correct. The coastal plan will need to be consistent with national policy statements.
Okay.
Next, Councillor. Yep, sure.
This was a bit about the trees one really on page 72 and 73. About the emissions trading scheme and emissions amendment bill. I must confess, I don't really understand it, but very confusing. The emissions trading scheme as a bill has been very confusing to me. So, Marcus, is it possible to summarise what they're trying to do here? And also the other question is, would that have an impact on what we are trying to do on some of our lease lands? Example of rock, like Turner, where we've got some plans to revegetate that into native forest. If you couldn't claim carbon credits from that, that would be a significant economic disincentive to do that. Sorry, it's a bit of a bad question, but can you see what they're trying to do will mean that anything that we want to do on those lands, let alone any private person, mean that would disincentivize any forestry, including native forest restoration?
Through you, Madam Chair, the government signalled a split gas approach. So they're trying to, exclude agricultural emissions out of the emissions trading scheme and enable industry to help over the next few years, come to a solution around how they're going to manage emissions or reduce emissions where they can. It's not I guess the emissions trading scheme is not a perfect solution. It's I guess trying to trade off, if you're emitting so many CO2, so much CO2, then you can offset that by buying carbon credits, and trying to get an accounting system to where it's transparent for everyone and everyone plays the same approach. There is some inconsistency, however, where the government allocates a certain amount every year of credits to big industries, and some of those big industries like, for example, TY and those sorts of things, where the government just grants out credits as opposed to actually having a accounting system. So it's not a great solution, I guess, in terms of the emissions trading scheme, but it's the best we've got to try and, I guess, like for like. In terms of the impact on Environment Southland and lease lands, I think personal perspective is there's probably more to be gained from Indigenous vegetation, long-term harvesting cycles, potentially, where you get 150-year cycle of totara or remu or something like that, where you get a biodiversity gain and you get a high value crop with a smaller footprint when you come to harvesting, but it's a long game rather than a short rotation exotic crop. Ultimately, the Environment Southland is going to need to understand what the future is for those lands and look at multiple solutions and multiple benefits, not just a carbon, but a biodiversity and water quality and all other state of approach to how it manages its lease land.
That is all on this topic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morrison and then Mr. Ball.
Yeah, I was just curious around the freshwater farm plan announcement and the implications for us. And at the bottom of page 64, top of page 65, talks about, it says we're working actively with government to make sure the implications for Southland region associated with the pause are understood and managed. And is there any indication as to timelines for any additional certainty to emerge for us on that particular issue?
Through you, Chair, perhaps I can comment on that one. So we have a group of staff that have been meeting with Ministry for the Environment officials on a weekly basis around the solution for Southland once the order in council is revoked. So we are, I guess, in the middle of that process, but we are expecting that will be, actually Adrian's on that group in the back. The cabinet paper and the announcements are imminent, aren't they? Can we be more precise than that, or? No.
Yeah, we've developed the road for the ministry team, which we've provided, and they then develop it up into advice for the minister. And when that goes to the minister in the next few weeks, there'll be further confirmation.
So weeks rather than months,
Yes.
but not days.
We will know more on Friday, we hope, more specifically.
Thank you. Mr. Ball and then Councillor Evans.
Just the tree principles bill, I'd yes, I encourage the staff to maybe talk with the treaty partner prior to formulating their response, and just remind us that Waitapu's treaties claim was based on breach of contract in the main, and it was so it was a breach of the contract. And I would suggest that this here is the contract that they were talking about. It's what we would consider to be the first one of the first contracts was written between the Crown and the local iwi in New Zealand. And if you have you're going to breach that first contract, and as we know, if you breach a contract, then anything else done after that is basically being breached. Because if you're not honouring that first intent of your contract, then what are we doing? So, sure.
Thanks, Stuart. Covers my point in a minute, but we'll get to that. Councillor Evans and then Chairman Horrell, thank you.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair. Marcus, the list of projects is a lot more than what was accepted through the fast track process. But the likelihood is these failed projects will go through the normal process in the future. And there are some good projects there. And would you say it's positive for our region that we've got so many industries wanting to invest in large projects in our region?
Yes, certainly. I think there's a lot of great projects there, a lot of potential for businesses and opportunities to progress south and forward.
Thank you. Chairman Horrell, and then Councillor McDonald, and then me.
It's just on the value of peatlands. I'm not sure if anybody else heard the interview on National Station this morning, and I was actually staggered that 30% of the world's carbon is actually stored in peat type environments, and I'm talking about the amount of carbon we lost with the Ararua, and with another one in the North Island, equated to more in a single year than the entire automotive industry in New Zealand, which was quite staggering. But they also talked a little bit about incentivising the retention or the re-wetting of peatlands, and it's something we've had a conversation about in the past. And with our own land, if we can identify areas there and with some sort of incentive, that could be very valuable thing to keep looking at.
Yeah, it's terrifying. From one kind of peat to another, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Just to lead on from Nicole's question, the bottom of page 71, we're investigating, and this is in the second response to climate change, investigating carbon capture. Any idea, is that into hard infrastructure and nature-based solutions? Would that be, or just are they talking about hard infrastructure of capturing carbon? What would that look like?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that's capturing both, but I guess identifying that there's emerging technology in that space, and as we progress forward, that technology is going to get better and more refined. So I'm just trying to leave the door open that there is potentially a technological solution to some carbon capture that we may not know right now. In the future, we may know more.
One would assume it would require energy to do that too, so that would be interesting to what it would have of our region too. A lot of energy comes from here. So thank you.
Chair, can I just comment here? Sure. Because I do know that looking at carbon capture and there's a microscope on the opportunity to the practice of pest management to encourage the growth of our native forests. And by doing that, then you're creating an extra carbon catchment that wouldn't necessarily be there if you didn't undertake that pest management within that forestry. So maybe that's some of the thinking of that as well.
Absolutely, I think it is. Biomass.
Thanks, Stuart. Right, that brings me to me. Two quick things. Well, one quick thing. I don't think we should take lightly any of the urban development changes, nor the productive land changes to how we can, territorial friends and colleagues can infiltrate and develop. I think we have to be very mindful of that and get into those conversations early to encourage different ways of doing things. But my main point actually is that I personally don't think we should brush over the treaty principles bill lightly. I think that's a really significant piece of potentially undermining our whole country's structure and social fabric. So if it was up to me, I would be absolutely saying we need to give some feedback. But before we did that, I was going to suggest that we have a workshop and hear from our treaty partners on their understanding of what this might mean and what it does for, particularly for them and for us, and the relationship that we have and the broader conversation. So unless, if anybody's got something else to say about that, I'm happy to take comment. But I certainly think that a workshop led by our partners would be enlightening for all of us and help us understand their views, and likewise we'd have an opportunity to feed into that too. So
When might
everybody's
that
got,
be?
well, as soon as possible, I suppose, but it's nearly Christmas already. Councillor McDonald?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Totally support that workshop. And I am of the view that when you say you're going to do something, this is how I've been brought up, you do it. And it's about life, sometimes about being honest or dishonest. Sometimes there's a bit of grey in the middle, but sometimes there's not. So you stick to what you say and follow through. So support that workshop.
Thank you. Rachel's just indicated we can squeeze one in soon.
Yes, through you, Chair, we have got a series of workshops through to the end of the year, some of which already involve the Te Ao Marama board. So we'll look at those dates and how we can just jiggle that around.
Yeah, that'd be great. Assuming that the Te Ao Marama board are happy to do that also. But yeah, I'll leave that with staff. Thank you. To make that happen. Thank you, Chairman Horrell.
Yeah, just on that, I think workshop's fine, but it would become more urgent if this goes past the first reading. If it collapses, as it sounds like the issue goes away. But having conversations with iwi is always good anyway. Regardless.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would disagree that it will go away because there'll be another way.
Well, there's 6 months of sitting.
Yeah, undermining to continue.
Absolutely.
But absolutely really valuable conversation for us to have with our partners and how we can face things together going forward anyway. So thanks, staff. I look forward to that popping up in my diary soon. Any other comments or questions before anybody like to move the recommendation?
I'll move.
Thank you for receiving the report. Seconded, please. Thank you, Councillor Morrison. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That report always does my brain in. So I appreciate the breadth of your understanding of all of that work, team. Right, the coastal plan update brought to us by the letters L and D. So Liz and some of Dave. Some of Dave's.
Just a slide that I want to show it.
Thank you.
While that's doing that, we could rush to the end of this report and some good news in terms of Plan Change 5. We have, since we last met, had approval of the decisions on Plan Change 5, which ends that process. And now this weekend, you should see a public notice in the paper advertising that the bill will become operative within 5 working days, which is next week. So that's super exciting news. It's taken us a wee while to get to here, but it's something we should be celebrating. And there are statutory parties that we have to advise, but we'll also be sending notice out to the parties that are involved in the hearings. So that's great news. Meanwhile, we are working on the review of the coastal plan, and as you know, there's a bit of work been underway for a number of years. The slide I'll talk to later, just some of the main topics that we're working through at the moment. The Bluff Harbour Zone. So at the moment, as you'll be aware, the discharge and activities at the South Port are dealt with through the coastal plan through a deed of agreement. We're working with, and also the Tiwai NZS, their site as well. And so we're working with those parties right now. There was a meeting this morning with NZS to look at how we can manage their activities going forward and whether the deed of agreement is something that we carry into the new plan. There's been a lot of work being done in the Fiordland space. We've got a working group that is actively working with our staff, with support of DOC, to work through some surface water activities, commercial activities in the fjords. So they've had 2 workshops now, and there's a couple more to come this year, I think. So it's been quite successful in engaging, so quite a cross section of community in that space. There's an item here around aquaculture. As you all know, we had a workshop last week looking at aquaculture, and not necessarily just for the coastal plan, but also for council's position, knowing that we've got some pastoral applications in the mix that we need to respond to, likely before we get through the coastal plan process. The last item is around the engagement. So at the end of this month, end of October, yeah, that's this month, isn't it? Sorry, Brandon. We're hoping to have a workshop with yourselves to have a look at the engagement process. So in November, we'd like to start going out publicly with what we've been doing in the plan and get some feedback. So as I said, there's been some focus group conversations, and they'll carry on. Some more targeted conversations with parties. This is more not in. So yeah, public consultation will be in the form of some online engagement and maybe some in-person engagement as well. And at this stage, we're looking at going out with some values conversations, just making sure that the values that we think the community hold, just to reconfirm them along the lines of what was done with Know Your Wife, Your Wife. So that's happening in the end of October. We'll come to you with letting you know what that might look like, and then in December come back and give you an update in terms of what sort of feedback we're getting from that and how that might influence drafting, which we're hoping to have mostly done at the end of this year, at the start of next year. So there'll be a workshop in early 2025 with yourselves to give you a heads up as to what it might look like. And then we have to go to formal consultation under the Resource Management Act. And the real decision point is going to be at the end of April, so we're still hoping to notify at this stage in early next year. That's what that slide there is just really an update on the process ahead. That's my report for now. I'm happy to take any questions.
I've got Councillor Evans at this point.
Thank you. As through you, Chair. Just regarding the Fiordland Working Group, it includes representatives from a wide range of groups, and you said that it works with staff, AES staff. Is there any intention to have councillor involvement with that group as well, considering that we're all working towards using that information for the development of a proposed regional coastal plan, or whether that's not?
At the moment, it's really just sounding off different options, so we're not making decisions or anything like that. So it's really just a sounding board and identifying issues. So at the moment, it hasn't been with council.
Will they bring it to council? Will the soundings that they talk about, will that come to council? Because it says here, their feedback will be invaluable in the development provisions for the proposed.
And we hope, as I said, in December, hoping to collate all of the feedback that we're getting and to see how that might influence the work going forward at that stage. Yeah.
If I could just add, through you, Chair, we have to be a bit careful in the development of plans that we keep councillors protected, and that you'll need to make a decision on the proposed plan for notification, obviously. So if you attend a workshop and express opinions, it can appear that you've have a fixed point of view, and it's really important to keep an open mind so we can provide some more advice about that. And if there are safe ways for councillors to come and observe those sessions, we can absolutely make those opportunities available. So we'll get some more advice to you on that.
Moment online. We haven't yet had an in-person one.
That's a good point, Rachel. Thank you. Councillor Rodway, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to comment on the, this is not on this report, it's on workshops in general, and this last one on the coastal plan, where we have the tables set out in a way that is good for having a discussion with 3 or 4 people and writing things down. It's very bad for having a general discussion. And I don't know if other people think the same as me, but when we've got the table set out like this and we have a chair, you can have a much better discussion overall. And the chair can manage the meeting much better. If you've got, I'm looking at people's backs and people in the way and stuff, I find it quite difficult at times, and I don't think it's very good. I'd rather have our workshops like this, and if we have to break out to have a discussion in small groups, and we can do that. We can have these things set up and we can write things up that way. So I don't know if other people think the same as me, but I do find the way that those are set out is not conducive to good workshop facilitation.
I entirely agree.
Thank you. I think there's a happy mix of, because everybody learns and takes in and contributes differently. So perhaps we just need to keep in mind that there's a variety of ways we can do some of those things, and some of this setup is good, and a mixture maybe.
Through you, Chair, the room is big enough that we could have breakouts set up down the back of the room, so we can absolutely look at that.
Thanks, Councillor, for raising it. Chairman Horrell?
And just on that, I think they're fine if it's just giving staff some feedback, but obviously there's normally a meeting like this where we actually take things forward. I'd be uncomfortable too if that was the final step, but normally that's not. It's I guess it's a quick way of gaining a bit of information, and it's actually quite surprisingly that you might have 4 groups and there's normally a big hunk in the middle that's pretty consistent. But I think that's just giving staff some direction to bring something back to debate in a more formal way.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, I
Last
just
one.
want to support that, what you're saying, Madam Chair, about the mixture of both ways of collecting information. We've got some really good staff that are very good at distilling down information, and what I've seen over the years is I don't see any one view dominating when that comes back to us as items in reports. So I think it works pretty well. You've got to provide for people that may be a bit shy with their ideas, but I look around the room and I don't see too many shy personalities here. But and then you've got to cater for people that can tend to dominate. So it's a balancing act.
Thanks, and we appreciate the staff's efforts and all of those things, because it's not easy dealing with all of us on a workshop basis necessarily. Any other questions for Liz while she's in the hot seat? No? Somebody would like to move that recommendation then, thanks. Thanks, Councillor McDonald, seconded Councillor Rodway. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. And 3 chairs for PC5. Right. Oh, Liz. Freshwater policy update, please.
Right, so there's a number of matters on this report, really just for your information at this stage rather than decisions. Update on the plan appeals. The water quality matter is still ongoing, so that one is yet to be back in Environment Court yet. The Rule 78 weed and sediment removal process that we've got with the working group has been a really positive experience, and we're progressing that work really well. There's a meeting this afternoon with the parties as well, so I think it's a good way to work, and the parties are really enjoying being in the room and being able to collaborate in that space. So, hopefully we can report back in the very near future. I think we've got 2 more meetings with how we progress there, and if there's any recommendations out of that group. And the last matter is Rule 24. So as you'll be aware, the Court of Appeal decision has come out, not in that favour, so we're going back to Environment Court on that. It's likely we'll be called back to Environment Court before Christmas, is advice that we've received at this moment, to work out how we approach the rule matters. In the meantime, there's a lot of lot of work being done behind the scenes in terms of the Section 70 provisions and the RMA, but we're not holding our breaths in that space. In the meantime, we've still got the Environment Court process. Farm plans, you talked about that earlier, so I'm not sure if I need to talk about that. Again, the plan changes following the decisions that we got at the last strategy and policy meeting. We've been progressing with 2025 work and doing really quite constructive work in that space, and again hope to go out in November with some consultation with the wider public. But we've started to have stakeholder engagement, which also needs to be built on some of the topics, building off the Rule 78 conversations that's been working so well. So hoping to carry on with that process in the plan change 2025. That's my summary of this report, but yeah, again,
Thanks. Councillor Pemberton and then Councillor McDonald.
Chair. I just do want to touch on farm plans. I just, regardless of what's happening in central government, we're on a good pathway, and I'm not sure if we're quite getting a message across, especially when we talk about Plan Change 27 and such like on the horizon. If the rural sector want to have a form of accounting to show offsets, i.e. wetlands or riparian planting and such like, how else are they going to illustrate it without a farm plan? I think we need to be really clear that there is no other way of accounting for your improvements on the environment without it, and therein lies a challenge, I guess. And when the constant conversation around to be audited or certified comes up, how do they fundamentally expect that that won't be the case if there's so much at stake for their business? And that's what it comes down to. This is about continuing a business, and it's not about the warm and fluffies. It's actual real life business for these farms in the Southland, and they need to probably have a slightly different stance in how they're doing farm plans.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just following on from John's question there, I think it's really important. It's demonstrating benefits and pathways for more money coming into the business, isn't it? A lot of people see farm plans as a negative light, that someone's reaching into their business and telling them off they should be doing better than this. But on the flip side, we're starting to see more benefits and the opportunities come. So the farm plan will be an opportunity to let those benefits flow back into your business. So I think it's a really good point. I just want to say this is 9.6 policy and strategy. No, this is the item before, but it goes into the next item, 9.6. Just because you mentioned it about the engagement, hope to, I think was words like that. Doesn't sound too confident that we will be going to the community in November. I really hope that we do. That was our intention in some shape or form. I would like to think too, during the autumn window, we'll be talking to the community too.
Our program, our work program that we're working to is definitely working towards November as a consultation. However, we do need to come to you as a group with what we've got proposed. So what it might look like may yet tweak. But with not much time left to tweak.
No.
November's only a couple of weeks away. So yes.
Yeah, so
that is our work program.
November is a really important part, and then once you hit December, it's basically finished. So it's a small window that will close quick. And then I would really stress autumn. That autumn window is really important too, where you tend to get high levels of engagement in the rural community. So.
There may be opportunities to extend into December or over summer with some consultation and engagement with the obviously what we've used in the past and going out to AMP shows, and if particularly in the coastal plan space, when people are active out in the coastal environment a bit more than they have been over winter, there's opportunities to engage with people over the summer.
Surf to city.
So yeah, well, 1 November is important, and we do want to get most of our feedback in that space because we don't have a lot of slippage at the other end. we will continue to engage.
Could I just a supplementary to that, please, if I
Yep.
could. So that will be taking the opportunity to talk about the coastal plan review and our 2025 plan change to. Yeah, that, very good.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison, then Chairman Horrell and Councillor McPhail.
There's a question around the timelines associated with publishing the remaining catchment CCV documents that remain to be shared with the public. I understand that not all of them are currently publicly available, but some are yet to be shared.
Yes, I believe there's still 4 that are yet to be published. They have been through most of the review. I think it's still waiting for a sign-off. However, it's imminent, and they should be up.
All been graphically designed, and it's that going backwards and forwards with the science team to check that what has been transferred across in the graphically designed versions is correct. So just the final checks really at the moment.
And I guess the reason I ask that is because I'm aware that industry are already conducting farm planning workshops in sub-catchments, but have been doing so, and some of them in the absence of a CCV. And so it makes it kind of, in some respects, they might be doing some damage.
Actually, if I can just clarify for you, Chair, so we have for the farm plan process, we've had what we call the CCVCs or catchment contexts and development, and those are largely completed. I can get the team to talk about that in more specific. So they're a higher level document. The catchment science summaries that I was referring to are those sort of 40, 50 page documents that you've seen, which bring together all of the science that we hold for each of the 12 reporting catchments, and they are a much more comprehensive document. What we are doing, the team, are some checks to make sure that what's in the higher level documents, the catchment context or CCVCs, aligns with what is in those fuller documents at the moment. I don't know if there's anything else you'd add to that.
So just to clarify, not all the CCVs are currently published.
There are still 4 that have yet to be.
But in some respects, I guess I'm reporting it as both positive and negative. It's positive that industry are taking a lead to start to roll these out with farmers and wanting to progress it, and farmers turning up to workshops, eager to find out what's required. It's just that when they get there, they're going, we don't yet have a CCV to support this workshop, and so they're kind of left with this kind of sense that they're dealing with really big red maps of catchments that are degraded and trying to make sense on that basis.
Chairman Horrell.
Yes, Madam Chair. There's like some of the stuff going at the moment is quite confusing to the public, and it's probably making it quite difficult for our staff, re-farm planning, etc. I'm actually quite happy that the industry are getting involved, because I've always believed we could add 4 or 5 questions to an industry-approved plan, and you're done and dusted. You avoid the duplication, you avoid the significant cost that the previous government's farm plan would have actually invoked. And the answer of getting people on board is that if the industry are behind it, and they get a small incentive for having an environmental farm plan, not 2 people walking down the same driveway. Some of them are starting probably for the blank page, so there's a bit of work to do, and hopefully we can get some clarification in the next few months about what is going to be needed in a farm plan. But with the Southland context, we know pretty much what we want, and it's that sub-catchment related stuff, and the other thing is the commitment over time to mitigate the risk on a particular property. I think that's going to take us a long way forward, and so the Section 70 stuff at the moment is a real distraction and frustration. That's there's potential for people to say, well, no, it's not going to do anything. I think we'll get there, but it's going to take a wee bit of time, and it doesn't look like we'll be in the first tranche of the RMA changes. It'll be the second. Hopefully that is within our time frame.
Councillor McPhail.
Yeah, just in regard to industries around the farm plans, obviously getting a wee bit of feedback in regards to one local one. There was certainly one industry was represented and one wasn't. And there was a bit of ill feeling towards wondering why we're here when maybe another industry should be, and getting told, well, they're all sorted. So this is what's starting to happen. There's in regards to these things. So the clearer the information also around there, some of our Appendix X maps. I don't know whether they're getting, are we doing anything like that and plan change next year? Was there something around that?
Potentially, the
Yeah.
2025 plan change could look to, I guess, bring those into
So
a
quite
more
challenging.
refined level,
Yeah.
so down to the reporting catchment scale.
Yeah, so that's what they're pointing out. That, so hopefully clarity on what we have got on the plan change may sort of some of those questions out. But yeah, there's certainly some people a wee bit negative, wondering why they're in the room and others aren't. So just put that out there.
Councillor Rodway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rule 24. Now, my understanding is that the Court of Appeal has basically said that the
Can you check that Councillor
that the
Gibson's all right?
the original decision was right, and that if you're operating, if you have an operation like a farm that discharges effluent or discharges contaminants that has an adverse effect on the environment, then you need to have a resource consent. Is that basically all?
Essentially,
Yeah.
The decision is around the evidentiary basis of the rule that we put in the plan. So that's the matter before the court in terms of whether we had the justification for the rule that we've got landed with. But yeah, section 70 is around discharge, and the conversation was around whether that included direct discharge or indirect discharge as well. So there is a ruling now that it does incidental discharges.
Yeah, so our Rule 24 was saying that we didn't, that sort of overrid that, section 70. So,
Not necessarily. It pretty much repeated what was in section 70, and the matter before the court was whether we could insert those conditions that from section 70 directly into the plan without having an evidentiary basis that it was going to not have adverse effects on the ecosystems and the lines.
Rachel might.
Sorry.
I'm happy just to expand, I guess a very simplified summary of the issue is that the Resource Management Act says before a regional council, or actually if I step back a step further, the Resource Management Act says that you can't discharge to land or in circumstances where it may enter water or to water unless it's allowed for by a rule in a regional plan or by resource consent. And then section 70 relates to those discharges and basically has a whole lot of criteria around conspicuous colour changes, odour, significant effects, or ecological effects, etc. And what it's saying is that before a regional council includes a permitted activity rule in a plan, it must be satisfied that these effects are not occurring. And then in our plan, we have a whole lot of rules covering agricultural activities from intensive winter grazing to discharges of farm dairy effluent, etc. So lots of rules, but there is a sort of catch-all rule, which is Rule 24, that says any incidental discharges associated with farming are permitted provided those conditions that are in section 70 are met. And the debate has been about whether you can include those types of conditions or that type of rule referring back to the section 70 conditions if you've already got water quality that is degraded. So that's been the tenor of the argument for the court process.
Hurts my head.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering whether or not, I mean, what I'm trying to get to is if the court, all the courts have said that this has to apply, couldn't our farm plan process allow farmers to get a consent? If they had a farm plan, they could get a consent to discharge, and that would mean that they were legal. Wouldn't that get around this problem that we have with these rules?
Can I perhaps add to that?
Yes, please do.
The problem with it is, Maurice, I mean, you know, high intensity people, dairying, have already got consents to cover all those things. The interpretation of the court's finding is that, and it's about non-point, so it's your diffuse discharges would mean everybody has to have a consent. We've always argued we can deal with this through our own rules and through farm plans. So to suddenly have to have 3,000 extra farm plans, consultants would have a field day, because they're all going to have to say, well, we'll have to identify what your diffuse discharge is. The other thing is they've got to, that rule basically says if you've got degraded water bodies, you have to have them, you've got to do things immediately, which sort of is, people in MPS to say is improve over time. So it's not helpful, and it's not when we're the first cab off the rank, but if it doesn't change, that would apply to all regions in New Zealand. So it is a significant issue and a significant cost. I mean, if we had to have an extra 3,000 consents, we'd have to have more consenting staff, we'd have to have more compliance staff, and we believe we can achieve more through farm plan.
But that's my question, is couldn't the farm plan allow that to happen? So, you know, and that the consent would be part of the farm plan. We have talked about consent being part of farm plans.
Staff might be able to answer that, but it does look like a duplication if you say, well, your farm plan is allowing you to now have a consent as well. So it's an extra cost for dubious gain, I guess, is the concern we've got out there.
I guess through you, Chair, the requirement for a farm plan already exists in the proposed plan, or largely operative plan now, and so the 3,000 odd farms in the region are already required largely to get farm plans over time, farm environmental management plans. What this decision would mean is that potentially once the Environment Court makes its final rulings, that all of those 3,000 farms would also need a resource consent, and that's the issue that's being debated.
Yeah, but
Thanks, Councillor. I get your point, actually, and that might be something that we need to discuss in a workshop or something. That
It's also important
some
to
next time
still
we cover
before
farm
court.
plans.
yes,
Yeah.
a clause in the farm plan would
Yep.
be that this farm plan authorises you to discharge, new step one, subject to the management practices that you undertake in your farm plan.
So through you, Chair, just trying to understand, so you're suggesting that if you had a farm plan, you then wouldn't need a consent? I'm right, okay, we can take that feedback back to the process, but it is still in a court process, so.
Yeah, is pursuing this conversation right this minute wise, or should we turn it to a different forum?
I think it's important that everyone has got a level of understanding around the topic, but we just need to be mindful it is in a court process, and so if we want to, I guess, test and debate things, we probably should not do that right at this moment.
So the councillors have indicated to speak. Do you have specific questions related to the report in front of us?
So actually, we can follow this up once we get the final decision, I suppose. Which will be from the Environment Court not being told by the higher courts to change its original decision. So what it will need is a change in legislation, which is what we've been asking for as well, but that might not happen for, who knows, there's no, the report here says that there's no changes to section 70 were included in this round of legislative reviews. It leaves us in farmers in limbo. So what I'm suggesting is that this might be a solution to it, but we need to get legal opinion on that, and I appreciate that at the moment it's probably not the right time, but seeing what the final outcome is could then be a way to find a solution to this issue.
Yeah, and it's not my intention to cut the conversation off and stop that necessarily, but I'm concerned that we have that conversation in the right place.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Yes. So, Councillor McFarlane, Councillor McDonald, you indicated you wanted to speak. So is it about that farm plan thing that we can
I would.
come back to some other time.
Question, but I'm sort of halfway through the conversation, but yes, that needs to be discussed in regards, so I have asked this question, why we got farm banks and consent.
Yes, so that's a bigger conversation that's not directly related to this update paper.
Still one of the same.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, tricky situation as you're talking about, but this is absolutely a really current debate. We've seen federated farmers that they're attempting to defund fish and game, you could say. So it is of high public interest right at the moment, and I get that it's very tricky to navigate around legally. We've got to be very careful, but we need to get our heads around this. 3,000 consents, like the chairman says, it would be overwhelming. Is there another way to do it? It speaks to say, Nick also said, if there is degraded water bodies, there is in Southland, and we all know it in this room. And we talk about it in the corners of the room. We don't go and tell people that. So that goes to my thinking with November and in the water window. We start to be honest about our water bodies in this region and how that will feed into the farm and into the plan change, those dual plan changes going forward. The more we talk about it and the more we're honest about the state we're in, the better it will be for everybody.
I agree, councillor. I'm just trying to work out with Rachel when we can come back to this conversation, because I don't want to feel like we.
Question, this is, I'm sorry.
If there is a conversation.
This is not just about farm discharges either. It could
No.
involve everything, like any discharges, is that correct?
So just give me a minute. Oh, Liz, please.
We do have a workshop on the 30th of October. That's set down and to discuss some freshwater matters, and that is probably an opportunity because farm plans is part of the conversation for the plan change 2025. So
And we may have some clarity by that stage whether Section 70 amendments are definitely in tranche 2 or a supplementary order paper is being considered for tranche 1 of the reforms.
And that's not very far away, the end of October. Something to do with, which isn't, it's about that time of the year as well. So councillors, I appreciate the importance of the conversation. I don't want you to feel like I'm just cutting you off. I think there's probably a better place, productive place to have that conversation.
Move the recommendation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Horrell, seconded. Councillor Rodway, all those in favour, please say aye. Against. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the importance of that topic. 9.6 is the Policy and Strategy Group update with some strange report writer. And Rachel, thank you, Rachel.
It is because it is a multi-authored report, so the managers from across the group have contributed to this, and I see both Marcus and Liz coming forward, and Dave. So if there are any questions on this update, we can
thank you.
answer those collectively.
Give us a once over, please, team, if you've got anything.
there's not a lot for regional planning team to update above and beyond what's already been talked about earlier today. I know there's a transport planning paragraph in the report that's just an update on the setting of speed limits rule that's being worked through at the moment.
You can see you, Marcus, all day.
Yes, really, Madam Chair. Yeah, unless there's any questions, take the reports read for our area. We're in ongoing engagement with that statutory planning requirements and annual plan, and we've got the annual report being for adoption, scheduled for adoption at the extraordinary council meeting next Wednesday.
Madam Chair, generally traversed most of the key topics already. Just a bit of an update on the legislative changes, which we sort of talked about already in the policy monitor. A little bit about agriculture, which we've progressed a little bit as well. Fast track applications. So, nothing to highlight.
I have a question if nobody else has. The point about on page 88 about the using spatial planning and a simplified designation process to lower the cost of future infrastructure. A note I've written to myself is, how might that work without a requirement for spatial planning?
Certainly, for you, Madam Chair, spatial planning is one of the key things that is supposed to be part of the government's solution to fixing the RMA. So it was on the table, the ESL was prepared, but it got repealed before Christmas last year. But now forms part of the new solution as part of the phase 3 amendments to the Resource Management Act reforms.
So it's not an explicit piece in itself, it's buried within other.
Yeah, so it appears that it will become a mandatory requirement as part of the formula change in the future, but it is not yet legislation. But also one of the key components there is one regulatory plan per region. So some of the work that the land plan would be combined in the district council planning and other documents as well. So we've been looking to get all the district plans and all the regional plans all into one to make a regional plan.
Piece of cake. Highlights the need for the likes of the climate change working groups and things to be front-footing some of this collegial conversations, I would suggest. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Rodway?
Sorry, not so difficult, sorry. What involvement will you have in all of this stuff? Do you have meetings with MEP? Do you get, does the regional councils have an opportunity to have an input as developed?
Yeah, through Madam Chair, we're welcome to work with Urukai, the Ministry of the Environment. I'm currently sitting on a resource management practitioners group that's got a non-disclosure agreement. So they're road testing policy direction around where they're thinking to head with the government reform package around the Resource Management Act. So we're certainly feeding in concerns as early as we can. And that information isn't being fed up. And I think that the cabinet's heading on the direction they want to head in terms of where they want to go with the direction. So certainly trying to feed in and take opportunities where we can to voice concerns or opportunities to make solutions better.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor McDonald, yes, I did have your name down. Apologies. Go.
I just want to make a comment, if I could, just on that statement talking about spatial planning. You don't have to answer this, Marcus, or not, but I'm just going to make a comment. I see that as being, it's creating so much gravity that it just brings all the councils together to start working together even more. And we heard this morning already about the regional climate change. It's just one example, but it seems the spatial planning, doing that together will cause, will accelerate those processes, one would think. So comment please if you want.
You can if you wish.
Yeah, the only comment I'd like to make, Madam Chair, is I guess that a spatial planning process is just a tool to help reconcile priorities. So if there's a whole lot of different priorities, whether they're climate change or biodiversity or state of Aurora or whatever those priorities are, it helps understand the nuances between those different components and where the overlaps are and where some of the benefits can be, whether it's infrastructure or local water done well. There's a whole lot of things that are on us as a sector that will benefit from some integrated decision making across agencies.
Chairman Hurrell.
Just when you look through that list, just the amount of change coming through, some of it affects us more than others, but if staff have got a lot on their plates to actually react and put something forward to us to respond in a short time, but that's a huge list when you look at what's happening over the next 12 months.
Anybody else? Somebody like to move their report then, thanks.
Happy to move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Miles. You can do Councillor McPhail. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Oh, what I forgot to say was I'd really like it if they changed granny flats legislation to something else. It's not only grannies that need a flat. Granddads, small people, I don't know, what is it? So, oh God. Secondary housing sounds way better than just grannies needing a flat. Perhaps the JORC committee could sit in there.
That's a good point you raised. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
hadn't registered that.
Sorry, we do have one more item, 9.7, it's the,
Elderly abuse.
yeah, exactly, update on councillor requests.
Sexist as well.
Rachel, do you wanna- or, yeah, but maybe.
So, Michaela keeps a list of councillor requests and actions that have come up through strategy and policy committee meetings. So there were a couple at the last meeting, you can see that are still on the list. We've got one more strategy and policy committee meeting before the end of the year. So those topics are either coming to that meeting or to a workshop. So watch this space.
Yes, my concern with that, councillors, is that the list just keeps growing and doesn't have a time frame. So I'm pleased to hear that we should be able to tick off most of those by the end of the year. Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I will just note exactly the same as yourself. A lot of these updates is before the end of the year. So I would assume if we got one more S&P meeting before the end of the year. And also, September 24, staff to provide further information on the New River estuary. Look forward to that update. And again, before the end of the year.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think it's a really good item to have.
Yeah, we just need to make sure it doesn't become meaningless, I suppose, which is a burden for staff, but it's important that we keep those things ticking off the list. Thanks. Somebody like to move that report be received? Thank you, Councillor Roy, and seconded Councillor Evans. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end, because we once again do not have public excluded. So just to finish us off, and apologies, I don't practice this part enough. Kia whakaira te tapu, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia wātea ai, te ara, auie, huie, tārakie. Apologies for my pronunciation, it was terrible. Thanks, everyone. Don't start having inappropriate conversations until the live stream's on. No swearing.